A long time ago, in the kingdom of Olaoluwa, at the far edge of the village, stood a small, worn-down hut. Inside, a poor widow named Mama Tayo sat close to her crackling fire, pulling a thin shawl tightly around her trembling shoulders. Her life had been filled with sorrow. She had once been a joyful wife and mother until tragedy struck. On their way home from the farm, her little boy, Tayo, wandered off the narrow path and touched the milky sap of a strange green shrub the elders called Agbo, the poison arrow plant. Within moments, his small hands began to swell and blister. In desperation to save the child, her husband rushed to help, but the poison spread to him as well. Their condition deteriorated swiftly. Baba Tayo sought help from the traditional healer in the kingdom, yet despite the healer's potent concoctions, there was no remedy. The villagers began murmuring among themselves, saying that a bad spirit had beset them. Within days, both father and son were gone.
Since then, Mama Tayo's heart had been broken, her laughter silenced, and her life filled with endless tears. But that night, destiny knocked on her door. Suddenly, a faint sound pierced through the whistling wind, a cry. At first, she thought it was her imagination. She held her breath, but the sound came again, louder this time, desperate and heart-wrenching, like the sound of a soul abandoned. Mama Tayo's eyes widened. She grabbed her rusty lantern and hurried outside, her bare feet splashing through muddy puddles as she followed the sound into the darkness. There, beneath a tree not far from her hut, lay a tiny bundle wrapped in silk so fine it seemed out of place in the village. With trembling hands, she picked it up and gasped. Inside was a newborn baby girl. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, her tiny fists waving softly in the air. Around her neck hung a golden pendant engraved with a royal crest. "Oh my God!" Mama Tayo whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "Who would abandon such a precious child on a night like this?" With no one in sight, she clutched the baby to her chest and hurried back into her hut. By morning, the neighbors began hearing the cry of a baby from inside the hut, and gossip spread like wildfire through the village of Olaoluwa. "Maybe Mama Tayo stole the child," some whispered. No, others countered. "The child must be cursed. Why else would she be abandoned on a widow's doorstep?" But Mama Tayo silenced them all, her voice firm despite her trembling heart. "This is my child. God Himself has brought her into my life."
Far away in the grand palace of the Olureke kingdom, King Adeola sat on his throne, sorrow etched deeply into his face. 17 years ago, his infant daughter had been kidnapped from her crib in the dead of night. Lady Folashade, the king's only sister, had advised against announcing the loss, claiming it would weaken the crown and invite enemies. The king agreed. Instead of informing the neighboring villages, he quietly sent out search teams to find his missing child. But despite his efforts, the king never gave up hope. Every month, he ordered new searches, yet every lead ran cold. Even the chief priest shook his head. He said, "The gods are silent on this matter." The court and the kingdom believed the princess was dead, but deep in his heart, King Adeola felt she was alive, and he prayed constantly for her safety. To this very day, the king's eyes clouded with tears as he whispered her name, the pain of her disappearance still raw after all these years. The rumors soon reached the king of Olaoluwa. Mama Tayo was summoned to the palace.
Kneeling before the throne, she narrated how she found the child. Since no one had declared a missing baby, the king gave her permission to raise the child as her own. Mama Tayo bowed, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Thank you, my king. May you live long." She turned and whispered to herself, "This is my child now, and I will raise her with love, whether the world likes it or not." She named the baby Amira. Years passed, and Amira blossomed into a kind, beautiful young girl. She was gentle with people, helped the elders carry water, and always smiled warmly despite her poverty. Mama Tayo worked tirelessly, weaving mats to sell at the market so she could provide for them. But the gossip about Amira never stopped. "That's the abandoned child," they murmured. "No one knows where she came from." Sometimes Amira would come home in tears. "Mama, why do they hate me?" she sobbed. Mama Tayo would cup her face and whisper, "Child, your worth is not in your birth, but in your heart. One day they'll see."
One morning, Amira went to fetch water at the river. As she filled her pot, she heard a faint groan. Turning quickly, she saw a young man in simple clothes lying injured by the riverbank. She ran to his side. "Sir, are you all right?" The man winced. "I slipped. I think I twisted my ankle, and my head aches." Without hesitation, Amira tore a strip from her wrapper and gently wrapped his ankle and his head. She fetched him some water and helped him sit up. What she didn't know was that Kunle was not just any traveler. He was Prince Kunle of the Olureke kingdom. "Thank you," he said softly, his eyes fixed on her. There was something about her kindness, her grace, something rare. "I'm Kunle," he introduced himself simply. Amira smiled warmly. "I'm Amira." Over the next few days, Prince Kunle secretly returned to the village, dressed as a commoner. He and Amira talked and laughed for hours, sharing stories about their dreams and their hopes. But their closeness stirred unease in the village. "Why would a girl like her spend time with a stranger?" the villagers muttered. "She is cursed. Trouble will follow." In the palace of Olureke, Lady Folashade, Prince Kunle's mother, and the king's cunning sister sat looking troubled. Something weighed heavily on her mind. She had recently discovered that Kunle was spending much of his time in the distant village of Olaoluwa, visiting a poor young girl he seemed to have taken interest in. One afternoon, Lady Folashade confronted him. "My son, why do you wander so far in search of a wife? You are the heir to the throne of Olureke. I will find you a noble woman from our land." Prince Kunle replied firmly, "Mother, please stop this. I am not the heir to the throne. Adeola is. My uncle, King Adewale, still believes his daughter Adeola lives, and so do I. Until she is proven dead, the throne belongs to her. I even hope and pray she is alive because it is her birthright, not mine." Lady Folashade's face hardened, her voice trembling with fury. "Nonsense! That throne is yours now. Adeola is long dead and you should accept it." Prince Kunle shook his head. "No, mother, I will not build my future on a lie." Without another word, Kunle turned and walked away, leaving her shouting after him, her voice echoing through the palace hall. Days later, unable to suppress her curiosity, Lady Folashade secretly ordered 2 guards to follow her son to Olaoluwa and report everything about the girl. The guards monitored him quietly. Days passed. Then the guards returned with troubling news. My lady, the girl Prince Kunle has been visiting is raised by a poor widow. The villagers whisper that she is cursed. They say she was found as a baby many years ago, said the first guard. No one knows where she came from, added the second guard. Lady Folashade's heart pounded. She dismissed the guards quickly and began pacing in panic. Her blood ran cold. Could it be the child they abandoned by the forest so many years ago? Suspense hung in the air. The truth hovered on the edge of revelation. Lady Folashade hissed to herself, unable to think clearly. Could it be that girl is the one? Those useless men failed me that night. They couldn't even kill a helpless baby. She carried a terrible secret in her heart. She had orchestrated the disappearance of the king's only child, Princess Adeola. Her ambition was clear. She wanted her son, Kunle, to inherit the throne instead. Many years earlier, Lady Folashade had burned with envy, an envy so deep it ate at her heart like a slow fire. She had given birth to a son, Kunle, a bright and honest boy she loved dearly. But despite this, the royal crown had gone not to her or her husband, but to her younger brother, King Adewale, simply because he was born male. Years passed, and King Adewale ruled the kingdom of Olureke with wisdom and strength. Yet he carried a deep wound. His beloved queen had died weeks earlier while giving birth to their only child, Princess Adeola. The tragedy left the king without a wife and without hope for a male heir. Because he showed no interest in choosing another queen, he embraced his infant daughter with pride and declared that she would become queen when she came of age. And that was where Lady Folashade's bitterness grew stronger. Her anger could no longer be contained. One quiet evening, as she sat in her chamber, adorned in flowing royal attire, she turned to her trusted maid, Fumi, her eyes sharp with resentment. Lady Folashade's whispered words hung in the air, heavy with longing and desperation. Tell me, Fumi, is it fair? My brother, born after me, wears the crown, while I was left in the shadows because I am a woman? Now, the king has no male child but his infant daughter, and I have a son, a true born male. Will he still be left in the shadows? Fumi hesitated. My lady, the laws of the kingdom favor the direct bloodline of the reigning king. The newborn baby, Princess Adeola, is his child, so she is the heir to the throne. Lady Folashade cut her off sharply. Child? A girl cannot rule Olureke. What will become of our warriors, our elders, our legacy, all bowing before a queen who knows nothing of battle or the council? Her voice trembled with emotion. She arose, pacing slowly, the jingling of her gold anklets echoing through the quiet chamber. No, it is not right. It should be Kunle. My son has royal blood. He is strong, brave, and wise beyond his years. The throne belongs to him by destiny, not that delicate girl. A cold breeze swept through the room, stirring the curtains as though the gods themselves were warning her to stop. But her heart was already hardened. Lady Folashade fumed. If Adeola lives, she will rule one day. My son should be the heir, not that girl. Blinded by ambition, she paid mercenaries to kidnap and kill the infant princess. But fate intervened. The kidnappers later returned trembling. We couldn't do it. A strange wild dog chased us in the forest. We panicked and left the child in the forest to die, they confessed. To this day, Lady Folashade never forgave their failure, but she comforted herself with the belief that the child was long gone. She can't survive in the forest, she told herself. This is bad news for me, she screamed. Princess Adeola must remain dead. Then she smiled softly. One evening in Olaoluwa, Prince Kunle noticed a pendant hanging from Amira's neck, the royal crest of Olureke. His heart raced. He examined it closely. Amira, how did you get this? Amira looked confused. This old pendant? I don't know. Mama Tayo said she found me with it when I was a baby. Prince Kunle smiled gently. Feeling embarrassed, Amira removed the pendant and hid it under her pillow to avoid further questions. But Kunle's suspicions only grew. A few days later, while Amira was away, he quietly took the pendant. Back at the palace, he compared it with one kept in the royal archives. It was identical. His chest tightened. He whispered, "She is the one. She is Adeola. The king must hear this at once." But before Kunle could tell the king, Lady Folashade struck first. She ordered her men to capture Amira.
That night, masked men stormed Mama Tayo's hut. Amira screamed and fought back, but they overpowered her. Mama Tayo tried to defend her daughter, but the attackers were too strong. She was struck down, collapsing helplessly as Amira was dragged into the darkness. By morning, Kunle, desperate and furious, gathered his most loyal guards. They searched every corner of Olaoluwa and beyond, but Amira was nowhere to be found. Days later, they discovered her bound inside a remote hut. She was terrified, her face streaked with tears. Prince Kunle rushed forward and untied her. He said softly, "You're safe now, Amira. I promise you, no one will ever hurt you again." As they journeyed back home, Prince Kunle rode beside her, his voice calm but heavy with emotion. He spoke gently. "Amira, I must confess something. From the very first day I saw the pendant around your neck, I suspected you were my long-lost cousin, Princess Adeola." Amira's eyes widened in shock. She clutched the pendant instinctively. Her voice trembled. "Wait, what are you saying? Does that mean I'm a princess?" Kunle smiled softly and nodded. "Not just a princess," he said. "You are the rightful heir to the throne of Olureke." Amira gasped, her heart racing. The weight of his words settled on her shoulders like a crown she never knew she carried. Without delay, Prince Kunle ordered his loyal guards to ride ahead with urgent news. They sped toward the palace to inform King Adewale that his long-lost daughter had been found. When King Adewale received the message, his entire being trembled with joy. Years of sorrow and unanswered prayers suddenly found meaning. He sat upon his throne, waiting patiently. Whispering to himself, he said, "At last, my daughter, my Adeola, the gods have answered me." Moments later, the palace doors swung open. Amira entered slowly, her steps unsure, yet graceful. The pendant rested proudly against her chest. The king's eyes fixed on her. His body stiffened and his breath caught. Then, slowly, his eyes widened, filling with tears. His voice broke as he spoke. "It's her, my child, my Adeola." Unable to contain himself, he rose from the throne, rushed forward and pulled her into a trembling embrace. His tears fell freely onto her shoulder. The courtiers bowed low, murmuring praises and gasps of wonder. The long-lost princess had finally returned home. As the joyous reunion filled the palace hall, not everyone shared in the happiness. In the shadows of the royal court, Lady Folashade stood frozen, her heart pounding like a war drum. She had hoped the past would remain buried forever, but now the truth stood before her in the form of Princess Adeola, alive, breathing, and shining like destiny itself. The courtiers whispered among themselves, their eyes darting between the weeping king and the trembling Lady Folashade. Prince Kunle's gaze fell on his mother, sharp and accusing. He spoke sternly.
Mother, is this not the child you claimed was dead? The one you swore could never return? Lady Folashade tried to compose herself, but her voice cracked. Nervously, she said, "This is a trick. That girl cannot be the princess. My main—" She stopped herself too late. Gasps filled the chamber. King Adewale rose slowly with his rage he had carried for years. "Your men?" he demanded. He stepped forward, pointing at her with shaking hands. "So it was you all along. You, my own sister, betrayed me, plotted against my child, and cursed this kingdom with your wicked ambition?"
Lady Folashade fell to her knees, weeping and begging. "Brother, please forgive me. I only wanted my son to rule. I did it for Kunle." Prince Kunle interrupted angrily. "No, mother, do not use my name to cover your wickedness. I would rather serve with honor than steal what belongs to my cousin Adeola." The king's face hardened. His tears gave way to righteous anger. He raised his staff of authority, and the entire court fell silent. Then he spoke. "For your treachery, Folashade, you are stripped of every title, every honor, and every right to this throne. From this day forth, your name is erased from the lineage of Olureke. You are banished from this land. Guards, take her away." The guards moved swiftly. Lady Folashade screamed and struggled, but her cries were drowned out by the chants of the people. "Long live Princess Adeola! Long live the true heir!" Princess Adeola, once Amira, the orphan girl, stood beside her father, tears streaming down her cheeks. She then walked toward Kunle and held his hand tightly, overwhelmed with love and gratitude. She spoke softly. "If not for you, I would never have known who I truly am." Kunle smiled gently. "And if not for you, I would never have learned what it means to stand for truth." King Adewale lifted his hand high and declared joyfully, "Let the drums sound across the land. My daughter has returned and justice has prevailed. Today, Olureke is made whole again." The palace erupted with music, ululations, and dancing. The kingdom rejoiced, for the lost princess was finally home, and the shadow of treachery had been lifted. The king's eyes, still glistening with tears, turned to his nephew. With trembling arms, he pulled Kunle into a warm embrace. Speaking with deep emotion, King Adewale said, "Kunle, your heart is pure. For your faithfulness, I bless you. From this day forward, you shall be a great and respected prince. Lands, herds, and servants will be yours." The court erupted in cheers. Kunle bowed low, but his voice rang with humility. Looking straight into his uncle's eyes, he said, "Uncle, I only did what was right. I will forever stand by Adeola, not as a rival, but as her shield." The king smiled proudly. "And that, my son, is why you are worthy of honor." Love and peace returned to Olureke. Princess Adeola, once abandoned, forgotten, and hidden in the shadows of a village, was restored as the rightful heir to the throne. Beside her stood Kunle, her strongest defender, proof that honor and truth shine brighter than ambition. The people rejoiced, dancing and singing through the streets. Drums echoed across the land, declaring the return of their lost princess and the downfall of evil. In the midst of the celebration, Mama Tayo was brought into the royal court. No longer dressed in a widow's rags, she now wore fine royal attire. A flowing wrapper draped around her, and her head was tied with rich fabric. Tears of joy glistened in her eyes. Adeola, once her little Amira, rushed to her and knelt in gratitude. Holding her hands, Princess Adeola said, "All that I am today is because of your love, Mama. When the world abandoned me, you gave me a home. You are my true mother." Mama Tayo wept, lifting her hands toward the heavens. She spoke softly. "God is faithful. What was hidden has been revealed. What was lost has been found." The king then ordered that Mama Tayo be honored among the women of the palace for the rest of her days. Her name would be remembered as the woman who raised a princess. From ashes to royalty, Adeola's story became a song sung in every corner of Olureke. It proved that destiny cannot be stopped, no matter how deeply it is buried. And it showed the world that true nobility lies not in crowns or jewels, but in the heart. The kingdom flourished, united under a new dawn of love, truth, and justice. And so, the tale of the lost princess, the loyal prince, and the humble widow lived on, forever etched in the history of Olureke. Up next is the next exciting chapter of this royal destiny. Will Princess Adeola rise as the greatest queen Olureke has ever known? Only time will tell. Stay tuned and don't forget to like this video. Share your thoughts in the comments. What lesson touched your heart today? Subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories and share this video to remind the world that truth always wins. Thanks for watching.